Granddaddy Purple. It is absolutely preposterous, the level of geoengineering going on here today. On Wednesday, June 19th, 2019. Wednesday is the day of Woden. I'm going to share with you from the Gnostic Society Library, the 7 Sermons to the Dead. Septem Sermons ad Mortuos by Carl Gustav Jung, 1916. I first read this when I was living in San Diego at the end, in about 1998 or 99. I read this. I got it at a little bookshop on University Avenue, used bookshop. It was the 7 Sermons to the Dead with the Gnostic Jung and the 7 Sermons to the Dead. So introduction, we'll read. This is therapeutic for me. That's why I'm doing. I know I said I was done, but before I go on with this, I want to just do an addendum to the esoteric structure of the alphabet, which I read in its entirety last week, and show you how it relates to the wheel of astrology, of the zodiac, the zodiah, the animal wheel of the dia, the 1 and 2, and the 1 from 6 to 12 going up, and the 1 going from 12 to 6 going down. So A and B is here, and M and N are here in the middle, down the middle. A, B is the alphabet or Aleph Beth of Abraham or Brahma, of the Empyrean fire of the Father, the first, the primary, primitive of all principles, the first. AB, the soul, undivided, undifferentiated. Down, D, door down, splashing at 6 into the MN of water. The Phoenician mem is water, the wave. Number 13 in the alphabet, 13th middle of the 26 letters. So A to M, I am. This is the water body of matter, of mother, and this is the Father, soul, fire, spirit, of electricity, of the source, the soul of all sound, of all songs, of the splash, of the soul diving into the heel of hell at the water of the body of matter, of density, density. And then the return trip, 6 to 12. Well, this here is the hell valley of earth, of the heel. Well, we're of the matter water body, with the body at Aries and the mind at Libra. Adam the body, Eve the mind. Odd and even, dawn evening, sunrise sunset, the serpentine circle of the sun on the ecliptic, day and night, deity of all dying, of the divine divide, of the dive, of the divine. So the return trip has been stunted, and humanity, the human soul, has been imprisoned in matter, unable to return to source. And this is the conspiracy. This is power, control, manipulation, This is the altered ego adapted to a concrete jungle, to a life out of balance, koyanaskatsi. Is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society, a society that remains at the heel of hell and never goes back to the heaven of the head of the torso of Taurus, and the arms and the lungs of Gemini, and the cerebellum of Taurus, and the cerebram of Aries, the ram's horns of the head of heaven, heaved up, arise, offspring, Horus on the horizon, risen Savior, Krishna, Christ, the crystal light of life. So the descent and then the resurrection, the phoenix rising from the ashes of death, the illusion of death, of darkness. There's only light. What we call dark is a word for the very low density of light, just the one light of electricity, of all life, which I am. The knowledge of presence, being a present, being a gift, being the one, Neo. The ability to say no to the Smiths. The power of no, now. Knowledge. Introduction to the Septem Sermons and Ad Mortuos. The 7 Sermons to the Dead. Septem Sermons Ad Mortuos might best be described. This is in translation by H.G. Baines. I'm not sure who's writing this introduction. The 7 Sermons to the Dead might best be described as the summary revelation of the Red Book. It is the only portion of the imaginative material contained in the Red Book manuscripts that C.G. Jung shared more or less publicly during his lifetime. To comprehend the importance of the Septem Sermons, one must understand the events behind the writing of the Red Book itself, a task ultimately facilitated by the epochal publication of Jung's Red Book in October of 2009. C.G. Jung, The Red Book, Liber Novus, edited by Sonu Shamdasani, Norton, 2009. Dr. Shamdasani's extensive introduction and notes on the text of the Red Book provide a wealth of previously unavailable primary documentation on this crucial period of Jung's life. In November of 1913, Carl Jung commenced an extraordinary exploration of the psyche, or soul. He called it his confrontation with the unconscious. During this period, Jung willfully entered imaginative or visionary states of consciousness. The visions continued intensely from the end of 1913 until about 1917, and then abated by around 1923. Jung carefully recorded this imaginative journey in 6 black-covered personal journals referred to as the Black Books. These notebooks provide a dated chronological ledger of his visions and dialogues with his soul. Beginning in late 1914, Jung began transcribing from the Black Book journals the draft manuscript of his legendary Red Book, the folio-sized, leather-bound, illuminated volume he created to contain the formal record of his journey. Jung repeatedly stated that the visions and imaginative experiences recorded in the Red Book contained the nucleus of all his later works. Jung kept the Red Book private during his lifetime, allowing only a few of his family and associates to read from it. The only part of this visionary material that Jung chose to release in limited circulation was the Septem Sermons, 7 sermons, in which septem in Latin, 7, of September, originally month 7, October, Octo 8, Novum 9, Decim 10, which he had privately printed in 1916. Click to see a page from the original printing. Throughout his life, Jung occasionally gave copies of this small book to friends and students, but it was available only as a gift from Jung himself and never offered for public sale or distribution. When Jung's autobiographical memoir, Memories, Dreams, Reflections, was published in 1962, The Septem Sermons ad Mortuos was included as an appendix. It remained unclear until very recently exactly how the Septem Sermons ad Mortuos related to the hidden Red Book materials. After Jung's death in 1961, all access to the Red Book was denied by his heirs. Finally, in October of 2009, nearly 50 years after Jung's death, the family of C.G. Jung released the Red Book for publication in a beautiful facsimile edition edited by Sonu Shamdasani. With this central work of Jung's now in hand, we discover that the 7 Sermons to the Dead actually compose the closing pages of the Red Book draft manuscripts. The version transcribed for the Red Book varies only slightly from the text published in 1916. However, the Red Book includes, after each of the sermons, an additional amplifying homily by Philemon, Jung's spirit guide. Philemon, Jung's spirit guide, Philemon. The Red Book, page 346 to 54. Based on their context, voice, content, and history, I suggest the 7 Sermons of the Dead to the Dead might now properly be described as the summary revelation of the Red Book, quote unquote. Seen in this light, it becomes understandable why Jung chose this one section of his revelation for printing and distribution among his disciples. Near the end of his life, Jung spoke to Aniela Jaffe about the Septem Sermons and explained that the discussions with the dead in the 7 sermons formed the prelude to what he would subsequently communicate to the world, and that their content anticipated his later books. From that time on, the dead have become ever more distinct for me as the voices of the unanswered, unresolved, and unredeemed. The Red Book, page 346 and 78, Jung's decision in 1916 to publish this single summary statement from the Red Book writings gives evidence of the importance he ascribed to the 7 sermons. In the same context, Jung remarked to Aniela Jaffe, "The years when I pursued the inner images were the most important time of my life. Everything else is to be derived from this. It began at that time, and the later details hardly matter anymore. My entire life consisted in elaborating what had burst forth from the unconscious and flooded me like an enigmatic stream and threatened to break me. That was the stuff and material for more than only one life. Everything later was merely the outer classification, the scientific elaboration, and the integration into life. But the numinous beginning which contained everything was then." In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Jung gives one account of how the 7 sermons came to be written. The Sunday referred to below is probably Sunday, January 30th, 1916. "It began with a restlessness, but I did not know what it meant or what they wanted of me. There was an ominous atmosphere all around me. I had the strange feeling that the air was filled with ghostly entities. Then it was as if my house began to be haunted. Around 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, the front doorbell began ringing frantically, but there was no one in sight. I was sitting near the doorbell and not only heard it but saw it moving. We all simply stared at one another. The atmosphere was thick, believe me. Then I knew that something had to happen. The whole house was filled, as if there were a crowd present, crammed full of spirits. They were packed deep, right up to the door, and the air was so thick it was scarcely possible to breathe. As for myself, I was all aquiver with the question, 'For God's sake, what in the world is this?' Then they cried out in chorus, 'We have come back from Jerusalem, where we found not what we sought.' This is the beginning of the 7 sermons. Memories, Dreams, Reflections, page 190. A careful reading, excuse me. A careful reading of the Red Book, including the abundant notes provided by the editor, Sonu Shamdasani, provides further contextual information. Shamdasani includes in the appendix a crucial journal entry from Jung's Black Book 5, dated January 16th, 1916. The Red Book, Appendix, page 370. Appendix C, page 370. In this entry, Jung's soul reveals to him the cosmological vision that will be more fully developed 2 weeks later in the 7 Sermons to the Dead. During these weeks, Jung sketched in his journal the outlines of his first mandala, the Systema Munditatis, which forms a schema to the vision conveyed in the sermons. The Red Book, Appendix A, page 363. The sermons are recorded in journal entries in Black Book 6, dated January 31st to February 8th, 1916. In the original journal account of the Revelation, Black Book 6, Jung himself is the voice speaking the 7 sermons to the dead. In the version transcribed into the Red Book manuscript, Jung gives Philemon as the voice speaking the sermons. Interestingly, a few pages later, on the last page of the Red Book manuscript, Philemon is identified with the historical Gnostic prophet Simon Magus. When Jung subsequently transcribed the sermons for printing as an independent text, the sermons were attributed pseudo-epigraphically to yet another historical 2nd century Gnostic teacher, Basilides of Alexandria. Thus Jung, Philemon, Simon Magus, and Basilides are all finally conflated together in the voice of the Gnostic prophet who speaks the Septem Sermons ad Mortuos. For a detailed evaluation of Jung's Gnostic studies during the period when he was comprising the 7 Sermons to the Dead, we recommend a lecture presented by Lance Owens, The Search for Roots, C.G. Jung and the Tradition of Gnosis. The audio lecture is now available in MP3 format for listening online. Click here to listen or to download the lecture. This is the www.gnosis.org library sermons, 7sermons.htm. Translations. 2 English translations of the text are available in our library. The first, below, by H.G. Baines, was printed in 1925, and is the version published as an appendix in Memories, Dreams, and Reflections. The second translation was made by Stephen A. Holler. This was the one that I read, based on his transcription of a private copy of the Septem Sermons de ad Mortuos, which came to him in 1949. It is found in this book, The Gnostic Jung and the 7 Sermons to the Dead, and is included here by permission of the author. The translation by Dr. Holler is recommended to readers. Click here for the Holler translation. The most complete version of the material surrounding the Septem Sermons is found in C.G. Jung, The Red Book, Liber Novus. It should be remembered, however, that this primary version remained hidden and largely unknown until very recently. Students of Jung are encouraged again consider the text of the Septem Sermons as published and shared by Jung. This is the signal revelation of Jung's hidden vision. 7 Sermons to the Dead, Carl Jung, 1916, translation by H.G. Baines. 7 Sermons to the Dead, written by Basilides in Alexandria, the city where the east toucheth the west. Alexandria, the city where the east toucheth the west. Sermon 1. The dead came back from Jerusalem, where they found not what they sought. They prayed me, let them in, and besought my word, and thus I began my teaching. Hearken, I begin with nothingness. Nothingness is the same as fullness. In infinity, full is no better than empty. Nothingness is both empty and full. As well might ye say anything else of nothingness, as for instance, white is it, or black, or again, it is not, or it is. A thing that is infinite and eternal hath no qualities, since it hath all qualities. This nothingness or fullness we name the pleroma. Therein both thinking and being cease, since the eternal and infinite possess no qualities. In it no being is, for he then would be distinct from the pleroma and would possess qualities which would distinguish him as something distinct from the pleroma. In the Pleroma there is nothing and everything. It is quite fruitless to think about the Pleroma, for this would mean self-dissolution. Creatora is not in the Pleroma, but in itself. The Pleroma is both beginning and end of created beings. It pervadeth them, as the light of the sun everywhere pervadeth the air. Although the Pleroma pervadeth altogether, yet hath created being no share thereof, just as a wholly transparent body becometh neither light nor dark through the light which pervadeth it. We are, however, the Pleroma itself, for we are a part of the eternal and infinite, but we have no share thereof, as we are from the Pleroma infinitely removed, not spiritually or temporarily, but essentially, since we are distinguished from the Pleroma in our essence as creatora, creature, which is confined within time and space. Yet because we are parts of the Pleroma is also in us. Even in the smallest point is the Pleroma endless, eternal, and entire, since small and great are qualities which are contained in it. It is that nothingness which is everywhere whole and continuous. Only figuratively, therefore, do I speak of created being as a part of the Pleroma, because actually the Pleroma is nowhere divided, since it is nothingness. We are also the whole Pleroma, because figuratively the Pleroma is the smallest point, assumed only, not existing, in us, and the boundless firmament about us. But wherefore then do we speak of the Pleroma at all, since it is thus everything and nothing? I speak of it to make a beginning somewhere, and also to free you from the delusion that somewhere, either without or within, there standeth something fixed, or in some way established, from the beginning. Every so-called fixed and certain thing is only relative. That alone is fixed and certain, which is subject to change. What is changeable, however, is creature. Therefore, is it the one thing which is fixed and certain, because it has qualities. It is even quality itself. The question arises, how did creature originate? Created beings came to pass, not creature, since created being is the very quality of the Pleroma, as much as non-creation, which is the eternal death. In all times and places is creation. In all times and places is death. The Pleroma has all, distinctiveness and non-distinctiveness. Distinctiveness is creatora. It is distinct. Distinctiveness is its essence, and therefore it is distinguished. Therefore man discriminates because his nature is distinctive. Wherefore also he distinguishes qualities of the Pleroma which are not. He distinguishes them out of his own nature. Therefore must he speak of qualities of the Pleroma which are not. What use, say you, to speak of it? Saidst you not yourself, there is no profit in thinking upon the Pleroma? Didn't you say there is no profit in thinking about the Pleroma, the great nothing that's everything? That said I unto you to free you from the delusion that we are able to think about the Pleroma. When we distinguish qualities of the Pleroma, we are speaking from the ground of our own distinctiveness, and concerning our own distinctiveness, but we have said nothing concerning the Pleroma. Concerning our own distinctiveness, however, it is needful to speak, whereby we may distinguish ourselves enough. Our very nature is distinctiveness. If we are not true to this nature, we do not distinguish ourselves enough. Therefore we must make distinctions of qualities. What is the harm, you ask, in not distinguishing yourself? If we do not distinguish, We get beyond our own nature, away from creature. We fall into indistinctiveness, which is the other quality of the pleroma. We fall into the pleroma itself and cease to be creatures. We are given over to dissolution in the nothingness. This is the death of the creature. Therefore we die in such manner as we do not distinguish. Hence the natural striving of the creature goes towards distinctiveness. Fights against primeval perilous sameness. This is called the principum individuationis. This principle, the principle of individuation, this principle is the essence of the creature. For this you can see why indistinctiveness and non-distinction are a great danger for the creature. We must therefore distinguish the qualities of the pleroma. The qualities are pairs of opposites, such as the affective and the ineffective, fullness and emptiness, living and dead, difference and sameness, light and darkness, the hot and the cold, force and matter, time and space, good and evil, beauty and ugliness, the one and the many, etc. The pairs of opposites are qualities of the pleroma which are not, because each balances each. As we are the pleroma itself, we also have all these qualities in us. Because the very ground of our nature is distinctiveness, therefore we have these qualities in the name and the sign of distinctiveness, which means, 1. These qualities are distinct and separate in us, one from the other, therefore they are not balanced and void, but are effective. Thus we are the victims of the pairs of opposites. The pleroma is rent in us. Let me repeat that. These qualities are distinct and separate in us, one from the other. Therefore, they are not balanced and void, but are effective. Thus are we the victims of the pairs of opposites. The pleroma is rent in us. 2. The qualities belong to the pleroma, and only in the name and sign of distinctiveness can and must we possess or live them. We must distinguish ourselves from qualities. In the pleroma they are balanced and void, in us not. Being distinguished from them delivers us. When you distinguish yourself from the pairs of opposites, the qualities of the pleroma, you're delivered. When we strive after the good or the beautiful, we thereby forget our own nature, which is distinctiveness. And we are delivered over to the qualities of the pleroma, which are pairs of opposites. We labor to attain to the good and the beautiful, yet at the same time we also lay hold of the evil and the ugly, since in the pleroma these are one with the good and the beautiful. When, however, we remain true to our own nature, which is distinctiveness, we distinguish ourselves from the good and the beautiful, and therefore, at the same time, from the evil and the ugly. And thus we fall not into the pleroma, namely into nothingness and dissolution. Thou sayest, you say you object, that difference and sameness are also qualities of the pleroma. How would it be then if we strive after difference? Are we in so doing not true to our own nature, and must we none the less be given over to sameness when we strive after difference? Ye must not forget that the pleroma hath no qualities. We create them through thinking. If therefore ye strive after difference or sameness, or any qualities whatsoever, ye pursue thoughts which flow to you out of the pleroma, thoughts namely concerning non-existing qualities of the pleroma. Inasmuch as ye run after these thoughts, ye fall again into the pleroma, and reach difference and sameness at the same time. Not your thinking, but your being is distinctiveness. Therefore not after difference, as ye think it, must ye strive, but after your own being. You must strive after your own being. At bottom, therefore, there is only one striving, namely, the striving after your own being. If ye had this striving, you would not need to know anything about the Pleroma and its qualities, and yet would ye come to your right goal by virtue of your own being. Since, however, thought estrangeth from being, that knowledge must I teach you, wherewith ye may be able to hold your thought in leash. Sermo 2. In the night the dead stood along the wall and cried, We would have knowledge of God. Where is God? Is God dead? God is not dead. Now as ever he lives. God is creatora. God is creature, for he is something definite, and therefore distinct from the Pleroma. God is quality of the Pleroma, and everything which I said of creatora also is true concerning him. He is distinguished, however, from created beings through this, that he is more indefinite and indeterminable than they. He is less distinct than created beings, since the ground of his being is effective fullness. Only insofar as he is definite and distinct is he creatora, and in like measure is he the manifestation of the effective fullness of the Pleroma. Everything which we do not distinguish falleth into the Pleroma and is made void by its opposite. If therefore we do not distinguish God, effective fullness is for us extinguished. Moreover, God is the Pleroma itself, as likewise each smallest point is the created and uncreated, is the Pleroma itself. Effective void is the nature of the devil. God and devil are the first manifestations of nothingness, which we call the Pleroma. It is indifferent whether the Pleroma is or is not, since in everything it is balanced and void. Not so creatora. Insofar as God and devil are creatora, they do not extinguish each other, but stand one against the other as effective opposites. We need no proof of their existence. It is enough that we must always be speaking of them. Even if both were not, creatora, of its own essential distinctiveness, would forever distinguish them anew out of the Pleroma. Everything that discrimination taketh out of the Pleroma is a pair of opposites. To God, therefore, always belongeth the devil. This inseparability is as close and, as your own life hath made you see, as indissoluble as the Pleroma itself. Thus it is that both stand very close to the Pleroma, in which all opposites are extinguished and joined. God and devil are distinguished by the qualities fullness and emptiness, generation and destruction. Effectiveness is common to both. Effectiveness joineth them. Effectiveness therefore standeth above both, is a God above God, since in its effect it untieth fullness and emptiness. This is a God whom ye know not. This is a God whom ye knew not, for mankind forgot it. We name it by its name, Abraxas. It is more indefinite still than God and devil. That God may be distinguished from it, we name God Helios, or sun. Abraxas is effect. Nothing standeth opposed to it but the ineffective. Hence its effective nature freely unfoldeth itself. The ineffective is not, therefore resisteth not. Abraxas standeth above the sun and above the devil. It is improbable probability, unreal reality. Had the Pleroma a being, Abraxas would be its manifestation. It is the effective itself, not any particular effect, but effect in general. It is unreal reality, because it has no definite effect. It is also creature, because it is distinct from the Pleroma. The sun has a definite effect, and so has the devil. Where do they appear to us more effective than indefinite abraxas? It is force, duration, change. The dead now raised a great tumult, for they were Christians. Sermo 3. Like mists arising from a marsh, the dead came near and cried, "Speak further unto us concerning the supreme God." Hard to know is the deity of Abraxas, its power is the greatest, because man perceiveth it not. From the sun he draws the summum bonum, from the devil the infamum malum, but from Abraxas, life. Hard to know is the deity of Abraxas, its power is the greatest, because man perceives it not. From the sun he draws the summum bonum, from the devil the infamum malum, but from Abraxas life. Smaller and weaker life seems to be than the summum bonum. Wherefore is it also hard to conceive that Abraxas transcends even the sun in power, who is himself the radiant source of all the force of life. Abraxas is the sun, and at the same time the eternally sucking gorge of the void, the belittling and dismembering devil. The power of Abraxas is twofold, yet you see it not, because for your eyes the warring opposites of this power are extinguished. What the God-Son speaks is life, what the devil speaks is death. But Abraxas speaks that hallowed and accursed word which is life and death at the same time. Abraxas begets truth and lying, good and evil, light and darkness, in the same word and in the same act. Wherefore is Abraxas terrible. It is splendid as the lion, in the instinct he striketh down his victim. It is beautiful as a day of spring. It is the great Pan himself, and also the small one. It is Priapos. It is the monster of the underworld, a 1,000-armed polyp, coiled knot of winged serpents, frenzy. It is the hermaphrodite of the earliest beginning. Hermaphrodite. It is the lord of the toads and frogs which live in the water and go up on the land, whose chorus ascendeth at noon and at midnight. It is abundance that seeketh union with emptiness. It is holy begetting. It is love and love's murder. It is the saint and his betrayer. It is the brightest light of day and the darkest night of madness. To look upon it is blindness. To know it is sickness. To worship it is death. To fear it is wisdom. To resist it not is redemption. God dwells behind the sun, the devil behind the night. What God brings forth out of the light, the devil sucks into the night. But Abraxas is the world, its becoming and its passing. Upon every gift that comes from the God-Son, the devil lays his curse. Everything that you entreat from the God-Son begets a deed of the devil. Everything that you create with the God-Son gives effective power to the devil. That is terrible Abraxas. It is the mightiest creature, and in it the creature is afraid of itself. It is the manifest opposition of creatura to the pleroma and its nothingness. It is the son's horror of the mother. It is the mother's love for the son. It is the delight of the earth and the cruelty of the heavens. Before its countenance, man becomes like stone. Before it there is no question and no reply. It is the life of creatura. It is the operation of distinctiveness. It is the love of man. It is the speech of man. It is the appearance and the shadow of man. It is illusory reality. Now the dead howled and raged, for they were unperfected. Sermon 4. The dead filled the place, murmuring, and said, "Tell us of gods and devils, accursed one." The God Son is the highest good. The devil is the opposite. Thus have you two gods. But there are many high and good things and many great evils. And these are two god devils. The one is the burning one, and the other the growing one. The burning one is Eros, who hath the form of flame. Flame giveth light because it consumeth. The growing one is the tree of life. It buddeth, as in growing it heapeth up living stuff. Eros flameth up and dieth, but the tree of life groweth with slow and constant increase through unmeasured time. Good and evil are united in the flame. Good and evil are united in the increase of the tree. In their divinity stand life and love opposed. Innumerable as the host of the stars is the number of gods and devils. Each star is a god, and each space that a star fills is a devil. But the empty fullness of the whole is the pleroma. The operation of the whole is Abraxas, to whom only the ineffective stands opposed. 4 is the number of the principal gods, as 4 is the number of the world's measurements. 1 is the beginning, the God Son. 2 is Eros, for he binds twain together and outspreads himself in brightness. 3 is the tree of life, for it fills space with bodily forms. 4 is the devil. 3 is the tree of life, for it fills space with bodily forms. 4 is the devil, for he opens all that is closed. All that is formed of bodily nature does he dissolve. He is the destroyer, in whom everything is brought to nothing. For me, to whom knowledge has been given of the multiplicity and diversity of the gods, it is well. But woe unto you, who replace these incompatible many by a single God, for in so doing you beget the torment which is bred from not understanding, and you mutilate the creature whose nature and aim is distinctiveness. How can you be true to your own nature when you try to change the many into one? What you do unto the gods is done likewise unto you. You all become equal, and thus is your nature maimed. Equality shall prevail not for God, but only for the sake of man. For the gods are many, while men are few. The gods are mighty and can endure their manifoldness. For like the stars they abide in solitude, parted one from the other by immense distances. But men are weak and cannot endure their manifold nature. Therefore they dwell together and need communion, that they may bear their separateness. For redemption's sake I teach you the rejected truth, for the sake of which I was rejected. The multiplicity of the gods corresponds to the multiplicity of man. Numberless gods await the human state. Numberless gods have been men. Man shares in the nature of the gods. He comes from the gods and goes unto God. Thus, just as it serves not to reflect upon the pleroma, it avails not to worship the multiplicity of the gods. Least of all avails it to worship the first God, the effective abundance, and the summum bonum. By our prayer we can add to it nothing, and from it nothing take, because the effective void swallows all. The bright gods form the celestial world. It is manifold and infinitely spreading and increasing. The God Son is the supreme lord of that world. Fiji, Truman Show. Truman Show, Joe versus the volcano, The Matrix, Lost. Same story. He comes from the gods and goes unto the gods. The bright gods form the celestial world. It is manifold and infinitely spreading and increasing. The god's son is the supreme lord of that world. The dark gods form the earth world. They are simple and infinitely diminishing and declining. The devil is the earth world's lowest lord. The moon spirit, satellite of the earth, smaller, colder, and more dead than the earth. There is no difference between the might of the celestial gods and those of the earth. The celestial gods magnify, the earth gods diminish. Measureless is the movement of both. Sermon 5. The dead mocked and cried, "Teach us, fool, of the church and holy communion." The world of the gods is made manifest in spirituality and in sexuality. The celestial ones appear in spirituality, the earthly in sexuality. Spirituality conceives and embraces.